Pray to this one, pray to that one. This one will help you with this one with that. Do this, do that. Wash your hands now. Wash your feet now. Wash your nose. On and on the list goes. Right? It's a long list of do's and don'ts, isn't it? Boy, where's the love? Where's the devotion? Well, as I mentioned just now, the transformation between complicated conditioned soul bound up by unending karmic reactions with innumerable desires constantly occurring on the sky of our consciousness, dragging us here, dragging us there. The material world is quite complicated, isn't it? I mean, you look at the material body, it's pretty complex, huh? Why is it so complicated? Why not just eat food, bath, finished. Enjoy it. But it's so blooming complicated, isn't it? We don't even know, but it is. It's extraordinary. Every little thing in the body is complicated. The mind, the material world is complicated. We can't work it out. So it's a little complicated, you could say, according to our situation. The different rules. Now, these rules which we follow have their basis in a book which was compiled by Sanatana Goswami, but in the book itself it's called a Hari Bhakti Vilas. Some of you may have read it. It's quite an extensive text. And this was compiled by Sanatana Goswami, one of the other 6 Goswamis. Why? Specifically to establish the authenticity, or the fact that the line which we're following is bona fide, authorized according to the ancient Vedas. So Sanatana Goswami compiled this Hari Bhakti Vilas particularly to show that the followers of Lord Chaitanya are also following the strict rules of the Vedic directions, which are to help guide us out of our conditioning in this world, to release us from being controlled by our senses and identifying with the body, to gradually understand our spiritual identities, and understand our nature, our real nature, and what is the purpose of this human life, where the living entity is under the modes of nature. Sometimes the mode of goodness dominates, sometimes passion, sometimes ignorance. But everyone in the universe is under the modes of nature. We're not the controller, we're being controlled by the modes. And by regulating our senses in different ways, the effect of the control of the modes of nature can be slackened. So that's the idea of the various directions. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna calls them the regulative principles of freedom. To free us from this dream that we're in, to wake us up. Sometimes it's hard to wake us up, isn't it? Even sometimes it's hard to wake the devotees up in the morning too. Yeah. We're not so keen. So the idea of the Vedas, the idea of the various sadhana means various practices which are relevant to the process of self-realization. The idea is there. So according to the situation, and we are in a situation in this world, especially in this age, we're very entangled, and the things we're entangled in are pretty complicated, in many cases. Some people are a little more simple. But most people now are bound up in social media and all the various trappings that go along with that, and the technology that goes along with it. and all the modern speculative philosophies. You go to college. I'm sure many of you have been to college, university or something like that, and studied some degree. Is that right?
Yes.
Somebody said yes. Who said yes? One person said yes. Fatima said yes. Okay. What did you study?
I studied international trade.
International trade. Hey, very good. Yeah. They have so many courses nowadays, isn't it, in the universities? When I did my degree, it was like, I can only remember about 10 choices. You did, language, mathematics, history, geography, economics, science. There weren't many choices. It wasn't. Now it's like a degree in, I don't know. You name it, huh? Anything you can think of, practically, right? Some outrageous thing, a degree in like painting your nails blue at night or something. I've got a master's degree in some crazy subjects. Complicated. The whole idea is to simplify a little bit our lives so that we can. Prabhupada said simple living, high thinking. Huh? But mostly it's simple thinking and high living, right? Simple thinking meaning no brain left. Only absorbed in all this phenomena, the material energies. Not getting, Absorbed in what?
Thinking about the past as in the future.
Past and future, yeah. I was thinking of the past and future. Yeah, anyway. So that's the idea. So Sanatana Goswami compiled this Hari Bhakti Vilasa. It's pretty heavy in places. We're not going to get into the details of that. But in the book itself, it gives all kinds of regulations for different, stages of our realizations, what's conditioning we're in, and so on to help get us out. Sometimes it gives heavy warnings like we see in the Bible, if you don't do this, you're going to burn in hell. It's like scary stuff. Because, people are so kind of like immature, etc. But the essence is to actually awaken our dormant Krishna consciousness. Now, in Hari Bhakti Vilas, the book itself, it says this book is compiled by Gopal Bhatta Goswami, not by Sanatana Goswami. And generally speaking, our teachers, our acharyas in the great souls, not just ordinary persons, liberated souls, explain it was a collaboration between Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatana Goswami to compile this very important literature, which, by the way, has to be explained by acharyas, because Prabhupada himself says this literature, Hari Bhakti Vilas, was specifically written to satisfy the smarter Brahmins who didn't consider that Gaudiya Vaishnavas were really following the Vedas or the Vedic system. And Prabhupada further goes on to say it is specifically meant for India. And the acharya has to understand how this is to be applied in various places around the world, according to different circumstances. You have to take the essence of the text and not just, black and white, boom, like that. Understanding the purpose behind it. What is the purpose behind it? That transformation. Yata kankshitam yatam, how it goes, I don't know. That's in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, where by proper association, anyone can be transformed and raised to the highest level, even in society, called a Brahminical level. Anyone, by proper association and by proper initiation, meaning receiving relevant instructions and applying them in our lives, anyone, any living entity, especially humans, can be raised to that level of consciousness and ultimately to the level of self-realization or God-realization. So now the collaboration in this particular literature, because Sanatana Goswami, he's also coming from Brahminical background from South India, but not so much renowned. In fact, the general Brahmins, the Brahminical society in India at that time, did not really very much appreciate Sanatana Goswami. He had served in the Muslim government for many, many years, and they basically rejected him as a Brahmana. So Gopal Bhatta Goswami, on the other hand, he was born in a place called Sri Rangam. Have any of you been to Sri Rangam?
Yes.
Hands up, who's been to Sri Rangam? 1, 2, 3, maybe more. You've not been there? You live just up the road. It's like not going to Paris. I have met people who've never been to Paris in France, believe it or not. Sri Rangam is a holy place in Tamil Nadu. Yes, Tamil Nadu, you've got it. Very special temple, very big temple, beautiful temple. On the river, was it Kaveri? River Kaveri. And there's a beautiful deity there, Ranganath, Vishnu, lying down. Beautiful deity, big deity. And it was there that Gopal Bhatta was born. He was born of the son of Venkatabat, who was one of the pujaris of Ranganath. One of the devotees who do what we call the pujari, pujas. And there they have very high standard. They're in a different, strictly speaking, line of what's called parampara, line of succession coming down from the Supreme Lord. They're in what's called the Sri Sampradaya, Lakshmi Devi. They're in that line. Bona fide, perfectly bona fide. But they worship the Lord in great reverence. And they're very strict. They're deity worship, all the rules and regulations, the mantras. If you go there, it's quite mystical, isn't it? When you go to Tirumala Hills, to Tirupati, you've been there, haven't you? You've been there, right? Huh? Huh?
Family deity.
Your family deity?
My father's.
Your father. So you've been there, right? Many times. His father worships Venkateshwar. Most people in that part of India worship Venkateshwar. Most famous deity in Tirupati. Huh? Opulent deity. Also under the Sri Sampradaya. They're also the acharyas there. So they're very strict. They're chanting their mantras. They know all the Vedic rules for deity worship and everything. So Gopal Bhatta was born in that family. He knew all the Vedic standards and so on. And it so happened in 1511, no, not 1511, around about 1515 or something, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Sri Rangam on his tour of South India. He went all over South India, all around, for years traveling around, spreading the Sankirtan movement. So he came to Sri Rangam, and it was the beginning of the Chaturmasya. Now, Chaturmasya means the 4 months in India of the rainy season. It rains a lot. We're getting a little drizzle. We call it in English drizzle. A few drops of water here. And we think, oh, I can't come to the temple, it's raining. Uh-huh. Oh, I can't go back to Godhead, it's raining. You have to wait, Krishna, I'm not ready yet. So Lord Chaitanya was there for 4 months in Sri Rangam. Traditional, the saintly sadhus, they would stay in one place during that time. The rest of the year they may travel, but during those 4 months they stay in one place. So Lord Chaitanya stayed in Sri Rangam for 4 months, and he stayed in the house of Venkatabat. Krishna, he made that arrangement. So he stayed in his house, and there was this little boy. He was only probably about 4 years old at that time. Small boy. Gopal. Huh? It says different things in different places. So he stayed there in the house of Venkatabat, Lord Chaitanya, and Gopal, the young son of Venkatabat, was absolutely enamored by Lord Chaitanya. He would constantly try to get his association. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would pick him up and put him on his lap and personally feed him his remnants of prasadam. So affectionate relationship was there. After the 4 months had expired, Lord Chaitanya was about to leave, and Gopal started crying and crying and crying. And Lord Chaitanya couldn't leave. He stayed on even longer to satisfy Gopal, a few more days. And he left on his tour. But Gopal, from there on, of course, was completely... There's many stories of Lord Chaitanya there in Sri Rangam, but in relationship to Gopal, he then was completely, absorbed in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya had gave him the instruction to go to Vrindavan later. But first, sometimes it's said in a dream. You find different accounts in different, because they never, they didn't have tape recorders in those days. They didn't record everything. It wasn't written. You hear from different sources. But he gave him the instruction to go to Vrindavan and join the other Goswamis in Vrindavan. Lord Chaitanya also gave this in a dream to Rupa and Sanatan, that they should expect Gopal to arrive in Vrindavan and accept him like their younger brother. So Gopal was very, you could say, very anticipating. But at the same time, Lord Chaitanya said you should stay in Sri Rangam until your parents. His parents were quite old. It was quite customary in Vedic times that they would give birth to children at a late age. Many times that happened. I don't know exactly their age, but it's described they were quite old. And Lord Chaitanya said you should stay here and look after your parents until they expire. So for many years, 20 or more years, Gopal remained there in Sri Rangam, looking after his parents. He appeared in 1511, and Lord Chaitanya was there in Sri Rangam in, his 27th year, so you work that out. 1513, it would be 2 according to that. So as you say, you get the chronology is not so black and white. But anyway, he had this mission that he was go to Vrindavan and join the Goswamis on the desire of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Lord Chaitanya left, Gopal wanted very much, because he'd heard about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Navadvip as a householder. And now Lord Chaitanya is a sannyasi, but he heard about Lord Chaitanya in Navadvip when he was with all of his family members and associates, and Gopal developed a great desire to be a part of that. But of course, already those pastimes were unmanifested. But suddenly, when he was this strong desire to be there, he suddenly found himself in Navadvip, a part of those pastimes. Lord Chaitanya revealed himself to him there, and he was able to go to Navadvip there and relish all those pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he patiently waited there serving. Now, one of the reasons Lord Chaitanya said to stay and look after your parents was because his parents were great devotees also. They were great devotees. And then eventually, after 20 or more years, 25 years or whatever it was, his parents were about to leave, and they said to Gopal, now, remembering your Lord Chaitanya's order to you, now please leave for Vrindavan. They told him to leave. And at that very moment, they both decided they leave this world also, and they left the world. And Gopal left for Vrindavan. And of course, he's very... when he was in Sri Rangam, he had an uncle named Prabodhananda. Prabodhananda Saraswati, who was a great devotee also, and was very much, you could say, a Krishna devotee. And he instructed his nephew, young Gopal, in so many aspects of, devotional service. Gopal was a child prodigy. He could, learn things just like that. Chung. Just like we do, right? You hear one thing once and you never forget it, right? Some things like that we never forget, right? When somebody chastises us, we never forget it, right? Or if they praise us, we never forget it, right? But things which are actually useful for us, we don't generally remember. Or we remember it in the wrong way, I'll never forget what he said to me. I'll get my own back on him eventually. Yeah, we don't learn the lesson. We don't remember the lesson that Krishna's teaching us through that person. We just get offended because we're on the bodily platform of life. But Gopal was completely absorbed in what he was hearing from his uncle and his father, and at school. School those days was not like now. If you were born... Have you ever been to a Brahmin village in South India? You were there, Vishnu?
No, not the Brahmin.
You've been... Your village, you from a Brahmin village?
No, I was not there, but I've seen that.
You've seen them, huh? They actually villages. They're all Brahmins. Whole village. I was in one village one time on Padayatra in Tamil Nadu. What an experience. It was like being in heavenly planet or something. It was like another universe.
They call them Agrahara.
Agrahara in South India.
Karnataka.
Like another planet or something, or what?
Yeah,
Like heaven or something.
everyone lives. Agra means like top.
Top, huh?
Hara means like.
Oh, like in Agra. That's better, Lois. Yes. So, and just to see all the children of the Brahmins, and they looked after us. Here we are coming in there, Westerners from wretched backgrounds. They were looking after us like gods, literally like gods. They were literally worshipping everyone on the Padayatra. They were bringing so much. They were filling our bellies like nobody's business. It was worse than New Mayapur. And the bulls, they were doing everything for the bulls. They wouldn't let anything. They were putting new things on their feet, and feeding them like anything. They were like, for them this was like paradise. For us it was like paradise. It was amazing. And their kids, in the morning, all these kids, hundreds of kids, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, there they all are sitting in this hall, looking like angels, all brilliantly bright faces and effulgent, chanting mantras in unison for hours, without moving.
For 24 hours.
Can you imagine? It was such an amazing atmosphere. So that's their school. Their school's not going there, learning about, a bunch of lies. Completely focused on, the path to God realization. That's school. Gurukul. So, all these things he was completely equipped. Coming from a very elevated family with all this knowledge and everything, devotion. So like that, he was fully equipped. So together, it said that actually it was Gopal Bhatta who did the groundwork. Like if you're writing a book, sometimes someone who's very learned, you ask them, can you find all the quotes? Can you get all the information? And then you put it together in a written format. Gopal Bhatta had all this knowledge and all this ability to put the relevant, in a way which was relevant to Gaudiya Vaishnavas, all this information from the Vedas and from the different Sampradayas in a format so that it would, Sanatana Goswami then compiled the Hari Bhakti Vilas, which was a very authoritative and highly respected text. Gopal Bhatta himself also compiled many literatures. What is that? What's it called? Satkriya Saradipika. Satkriya Saradipika, which is also very extensive, specifically for householders, directions for householders, when you're in the household life, It's not as complicated as brahmacharya life, but it's quite complicated, huh? As a grihastha. Yeah? Some of you have been grihasthas or are grihasthas. It's almost as complicated as brahmacharya life, isn't it? Brahmacharya life could be very complicated too if you're thinking of grihastha life. More complicated. Or you're thinking of the opposite sex or whatever. It'd be very complicated. But there's directions there to help grihasthas, men, women, to spiritually advance as well. It's not just spiritual knowledge, it's knowledge which is relevant to help us gradually mature, to evolve, to advance. Like that. I've never read it, but he wrote commentaries, even wrote an introduction on the Sandarbhas for Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami also credits much of his information to Gopal Bhatta Goswami because he was like a research, he's like the research man, Had all the, Google. He was like, Google Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Google Goswami. Okay, don't. Anyway, he had many parts to play in the compilation of the various literatures the Goswamis had to compile for our benefit. Whilst he was there Lord Chaitanya was very, very eager, always inquiring, has he arrived? Has he arrived? No, he knew, but I mean, he's playing the part of, communication, good communications. And he would be sending messages to Vrindavan, has Gopal arrived yet? Has he arrived? Gopal Bhatta, has he arrived? And of course he was delayed a long time in Srirangam. But eventually the message came back, yes, he has arrived. And Lord Chaitanya was ecstatic when he heard that he arrived in Vrindavan and that Rupa and Sanatana had taken him like their younger brother. And they were together there in Vrindavan. And Lord Chaitanya then sent some special gifts for Gopal. Right? Some underwear. Kind of sounds weird, huh? Imagine if somebody, sends you a special gift. They send you some of their underwear. It would be an insult, right? In normal terms, right? Yeah. But for a Vaishnava, I mean, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they said like, wow, what a gift. And some of his outer cloth and a wooden plank. It doesn't sound like very valuable gifts, If someone sent you a gift for your birthday or something, they send you a wooden plank. You probably beat them on the head with it or something. It's like wooden plank and a piece of underwear. What a present. But for a Vaishnava, he worshipped it. He just fell on the ground and just worshipped these items. They are the tadiya, they're the property of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, some of his possessions, worshipable. To this very day, that plank is worshipped there in the temple that Gopal Bhatta established in Vrindavan. So he worshipped that plank. Plank. Why he worshipped that plank was Lord Chaitanya used to sit on that plank. Not an ordinary plank. Not just any old plank from Brico or something. So he worshipped that plank. Very special gift. Hey, come on, why didn't you send me a mobile phone or something useful, Nowadays you want a mobile. But a different world, different mentality. So there he was very, very absorbed there in assisting the Goswami. In fact, Rupa Goswami says that he engaged Gopal Bhatta in worshipping Radha Govinda. He was also Pujari for Radha Govinda, the deities of Rupa Goswami. But he very much wanted to worship deities also. And there are different stories here. It depends which account you read. Well, I'll keep the simple one. This is recounted by Padmanabha Goswami at the temple of Radha Raman in Vrindavan. But this is a simpler one. So Lord Chaitanya appeared to him in a dream. He said he wanted also, he was very much eager for Lord. He never got Lord Chaitanya's association again, by the way, after Srirangam. He never went to Puri. And Lord Chaitanya had already left Vrindavan a long time ago before he reached Vrindavan. So he never got directly the association of Lord Chaitanya. But when you say dreams, with us we know what dreams are. But dreams of the devotees, it means an actual vision. They don't sleep. They don't go into the mode of ignorance like we do. They rest their body, and during that period, quite often they have interactions with, the Lord or with great devotees. So the Lord appeared to him and told him to go to the Gandaki, the river Gandaki. Who's been to the Gandaki River in Nepal? Nobody? I've been very close to it. I didn't go. I was in Pokhara, which is right at the foot of Annapurna, in the valley of the great mountain. Where is Annapurna here? Annapurna? Is she here? There you are. This mountain is called the Annapurna Mountain. One day you will go there. It's one of the most beautiful mountains on this planet. I've seen it a few times. It's a gorgeous mountain. And from that mountain range, it's a whole range of mountains actually. From that mountain range comes the Gandaki River. And in that river, what happens in that river? Pardon? Shalagram Shilas. Now, most of you know what a Shalagram Shila is. Some of you may know, may not know. What is a Shalagram Shila?
Representation of the Lord in the form of the stone.
Okay. Special stone, isn't it?
Special stone,
yeah.
Yeah. You have a small.
Yeah. We have Varahadev here, but there's a little different. Shalagram Shilas, they're generally, they're usually round. But what's the special feature about those Shilas? Lines certain marks. And not only on the surface, they may not have, but within the side, inside. Yeah, sometimes they have, inside there's gold, and sometimes, and almost all you see inside, the markings, different markings inside. Mystical. All perfectly, perfect formations inside according to which Shilas they are. Mystifying the scientists. And what do the scientists say? How is this coming about? Very scientific answer. They say millions of years ago some worms or something did all, but it's actually a fact. But anyway, they have no answer for this. It's amazing. Incredible designs inside. And systematic, so systematic. The different lines on the outside, inside, they determine which type of form, which Krishna, this one, that one, which Shila it is, and so on. So of course you can worship Shilas according to your heart, say, bhava, emotions. So he went up to the Gandaki, he took his bath in the Gandaki. It's a beautiful flowing river, quite cold. And he took his bath there with his lota. Lota means like a bowl which you pour water over you. And suddenly he saw inside the lota there were all these Shilas inside the lota. Poured them back into the river, and they jumped back into his lota. Get out, go and put them back again. 3 times he poured them back, and they jumped back into his lota. Such a disturbance, huh? 3 times these 12 Shilas jumped back in. So he concluded that, as I say, there is another story, which is more exciting than this, but this is the simple one. And he thought, well, maybe it's Krishna's will that I worship these Shilas. So he headed back to Vrindavan, and with these Shilas. On the way, there was a tremendous downpour, monsoon season maybe, huge storm. He took shelter in the house of this Brahmin who treated him with the greatest of respect, looked after him so nicely. And the Brahmin was getting old, and his wife was getting old, and they had no children. So, no son. Maybe some daughters. No son. They want a son. So Gopal Bhatta blessed them, saying, I bless you. We can't do this, but pure devotees can do it. I bless you, you have a son. So this Brahmin said, if I do get a son, I promise you, I will give that son to you. Like a disciple, assistant. So he went on to Vrindavan and continued with his services there in Vrindavan with the other Goswamis, compiling literatures, going all over Vrindavan, performing bhajans, inspiring all the residents of Vrindavan, he had no specific residence. They would stay in different places every day, sometimes here, sometimes there, in different parts of Braj, Vrindavan. But particularly he was worshipping his Shilas, and at that time he happened to be staying near Nindavan. If you've been to Vrindavan, you'll know Nindavan. There are Sevakunj and Nindavan, two famous kind of little forests within the town of Vrindavan, where Krishna performed his pastimes, leelas, etc. So he's worshipping his deities there, and he was thinking, how? Because all the other 5 Goswamis, they all had forms of Krishna, like small ones, but big ones also, like we see here on the altar. They had Krishna in his manifest form with 2 arms, playing the flute and a nose and all those things. But Gopal Bhatta Goswami's deities were just Shilas. Huh? So he's thinking it'd be so nice to be able to, worship the Lord in that form also. So Krishna arranged one rich businessman. The Lord appeared to him and said, you go to Vrindavan right now, go. There's no coronavirus, don't worry, you can go. Go right now, and I want you to go to this great devotee there, Gopal Bhatta, and take beautifully opulent dresses and crowns and jewelries and so on, and give them to Gopal Bhatta. He did. He went straight to Vrindavan. People had a little faith in those days. He went straight to Vrindavan and presented them to Gopal Bhatta. Was shocked. Very surprised. What am I going to do with this? You can't dress Shilas. Not like that anyway. They don't have any legs and arms. They have faces, sort of, but it's like, everything's one there. So what am I going to do with this? So he was thinking, if only I had a deity, because the dresses weren't that big. If only I had a deity of Krishna, I could worship Krishna like the other Goswamis. So that day he was praying for the Lord to solve this. What am I going to do? And it happened to be on Nishingadev's appearance day, actually. He was meditating. If you know the story of Lord Nishingadev, how did Lord Nishingadev appear? Out of a pillar, just like that pillar there. One day you might see Lord, if you're if you're a naughty boy or girl, Lord Nishingadev might appear out that pillar there. It looks like the pillar in the book, doesn't it? Okay. So he was thinking, my Lord, you appeared before Prahlad out of the pillar. Nothing's impossible. In his puja, he put the deities to rest under a basket that night, his 12 Shilas, under the basket, took a little rest and did his bhajan during the night, went down to the river Yamuna to take his bath early in the morning, came back to start to wake the deities and start the puja, opened the basket. There were only 11 Shilas there. Only 11 Shilas. To the shock of his life, there was a beautiful form of Krishna stood there. In threefold bending form, playing the flute, was stood there. Unbelievable. He couldn't. Can you imagine if that happened to us? Anyway, Krishna. And he noticed that the Damodar Shila, one of the Shilas was named Damodar, was no longer there. This Damodar suddenly manifested as a threefold bending form of Krishna. beautiful blackish form. And he was overwhelmed in ecstasy. He fell on the ground just crying in ecstasy and offering his unending respects to the Lord. And of course everyone, as soon as this news, the whole of Vrindavan started running to that place to see this incredible event. The manifestation of the deity of, and they named the devotees, the Goswamis named the deity Shri Shri Radha Raman. That means one who gives great pleasure to Radharani, Radha Raman. And it so happened that the dresses that this rich set had brought exactly fitted the deity. The crowns, the jewelry, everything, perfect match. Krishna had arranged, first of all he arranged all his own clothing and then he appeared. He's not going to appear naked, you know what I mean? He has to have some clothes. So he arranged, all the clothes came first and then he appeared. And it said, I've never seen, but you said you can still see a bit of the Shalagram Shila on the back of the deity. Very unusual deity. This deity has nails and teeth. Very small deity. One of the famous deity. People come from all over to see this self-manifested deity, or manifested out of the Shila. And Prabhupada himself said that, the worship in the Radharaman temple is the best, He asked us, devotees in the early days would go there. They'd go there to learn. What they do, some things different to we do. They're a different line. But Prabhupada asked us to learn from them also. Wonderful deity worship. Radharani is not manifested there in a form. She's present as a crown, a silver crown on the left side of Radharaman. You can see one crown is there. So he was worshipping there, Radharaman, for much of his life. And then one day, he went out to take a bath or went out somewhere. When he came back, there was this young boy, about 10 years old, stood outside of this kutir that day where he was worshipping the deities. This young boy. And he said, the boy immediately bowed down to Gopal. And Gopal said, who are you? Who are you? And then he introduced himself. He was the son of that Brahmana who promised to give his son to Gopal. So when the boy he wasn't very old, he was a very young kid. He was not a teenager, he was just, 8 years or something. And the boy said, I've come to serve you for the rest of my life. That was it. That was his. He didn't know to go to university to get his career. He had his career already before he was born. Right? His father said, I'm going to give him to you. And there he was. He kept his promise, and the boy accepted that as his life service. So he did. Gopal Bhatta accepted him as his servant and his disciple also. And for the rest of his life, he served Gopal Bhatta in whatever way he liked. Gopal Bhatta also gave him the service of serving his deity, Radharaman. But as he got older, he remained celibate his whole life. Who would take over the worship? So he had another brother. The brother's name was Damodar. And that boy also came to Vrindavan later on. His father had another son after that. And he also came, and he took shelter of his, I think maybe by this time, Gopal Bhatta left after 75 years of age. He left the world. And this boy Damodar, came there and took initiation from his elder brother. Elder brother's name was Gopinath. So he took initiation from him, and Damodar got married. So then he took over the deity worship. And from there, all the lines of worship, the different, Goswami families, they call them Goswami family. They're not sannyasis, they're married, they're grihastas, but they descended then down from Damodar. And the puja goes on to this very day in the Radha Damodar temple. You can see the samadhi of Gopal Bhatta Goswami there in the Radha Raman temple. It's a whole, like another temple building, like kutir for his samadhi. Very nice atmosphere there. And he has kutir, bhajan kutir in Sanket and various places in Braj where he used to perform his bhajans and so on and so forth. Yeah, Hare Krishna.
So
Okay.
Maharaj, I remember, I heard that when the Goswamis came, Rupa Sanatana Goswami came to see Raman, they named the name
Radharaman, they named the
and
deity.
they found Raman had the characteristics of the three deities.
Pardon?
The Raman,
Radharaman.
characteristics of the three deities. Madana Mohan, Govinda, and Gopinath. Do you remember that? You heard about that?
What was the three deities?
Face
The
looked
body
like
Features.
The features.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
the face looked like Madana Mohan, the chest like Gopinath, and the legs like Govinda.
Like Govinda.
You heard
Oh.
about that? You never heard of it. Yeah, something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, it's obviously correct. Everyone, many devotees have heard this story.
From Padmanabha Goswami.
Yeah.
I never.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that, it was the most astounding deity, the most beautiful deity. Now, another feature about that deity was all the deities of the Goswamis were taken from Vrindavan because of the Muslims, Aurangzeb and his team. They were destroying all of the deities in Vrindavan. And they were all taken mostly to Jaipur. Madam Mohan went to Karoli and but all the others went to Jaipur or hidden somewhere. I think one went somewhere else. But the deity of Radharaman remained because he was so small. They weren't interested. Because they were just saying, big. God is, the big one must be their God, Mundane perception. We have the same mundane perception. Want to get right close to the deities, 'cause, it's not like that. Why is the deity so small? We want a big deity. We want a big one. They've got a big one. I want a big one too.
Selfish.
Mundane perception. So that's the deity. The only deity, the Vrindadevi, there's only like two deities from that time still remaining in Vrindavan. And Radharaman is one of them. Very special deity. Huh?
I mean, the Radha Mother days also.
Radha Damodar is there.
They,
in Vrindavan.
they did not go to Jaipur.
They didn't go to Jaipur, no. There's a Radha Damodar in Jaipur, but it's not the original one. Yeah, very nice. Anything else on Gopal Bhatta Goswami? Vidur.
I was just wondering how they compiled so many books while living as mendicants in the forest, and did they have access to libraries, and how did they write?
Yeah, they had internet and all these things, computers, mobile. They had all these things naturally. Of course, they must have done. They must have done. No. In terms of libraries, libraries were developed. You can see in the Radha Damodar temple, there's a library of the writings of the Goswamis. So libraries they had literatures, kind of libraries. They're written on manuscript, on palm leaves and things like this. They would read from different study and different scriptures, not in an official library, but yes, in that sense they had the various manuscripts of the various teachings and writings of other acharyas and so on. But primarily because they're self-realized souls, and they're also Shrutidhara, whatever they hear, just like Jiva Goswami, he spent much time in Varanasi under, what's his name, Vidyapati Vachaspati or something. Yeah, he's a great Sanskrit scholar. And he would learn everything just like that. They never needed to write. They would just remember exactly what they heard, We get, this different era, You get someone, I did some research on Vedic drama one time. And, Kalidas, one of the most famous compilers of dramas, he would compile 4 or 5 dramas simultaneously. and he'd have people sitting around him writing the text. So he would one paragraph there, this guy's, and then before he got back to that one, he'd already given 4 other sections of others to the others sitting around. Each one had a different drama. And then you go back to that one who just finished writing the text of that one, then you go to that one. Their brains were, they weren't quite as full as ours. We have no space in our brains. Our brains are full up with garbage from the womb onwards. Yeah, it's spaced out, we say.
They still do that, Maharaj. One debate. There is 100 people, 108 people sit to ask questions to the speaker. They all ask 108 questions. The one who replies, and they still do it now in India, he replies to every individual like one after the other. They all ask one time, like one after the other, and then he replies to all of them like in
Yeah, in South India especially, it's still got.
I forgot the name of this. They live it actually.
Yeah, there's still some of these super brains there.
No, they're smart brothers.
Yeah, they weren't ordinary. So they could remember everything, and they could piece it together. It's not just, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And they collaborated. And they would sit together for hours daily discussing Bhagavatam. Raghunath Das would spend hours every day talking about Lord Chaitanya's pastimes to the other Goswamis. Raghunath Bhatta would spend hours every day reading Srimad Bhagavatam to the other, explaining everything so sweetly in different meters. They wouldn't just they would be in different very melodious meter that they would speak with. They were living it. When you live something, it's a little easier to reveal it to others, to describe it to others. It becomes a little easier. It's not just trying to get one's brain around the subject and write it properly. It's a natural flow. You're just describing your heart's loving relationship sometimes. Anything else? Okay, Gopal Bhatta Goswami ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi.